Good evening. This is the Raleigh Finance Committee meeting of February 6, 2018. It is 7:18. Call the meeting to order and remind everyone that we are being video recorded. First item of business is to approve the minutes. November 14th, 2007. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to read them.
Which one was discussed on the 14th?
They were one of the,
one comment would be, where it says others present, David Peterson, can we just add Selectman David Peterson for the record, only because, years down the road, he was a selectman at different various times, and everybody else got their title there, so I always like to make sure he gets his title too.
Sure. Okay, to have a motion to approve with the correction.
So moved.
Okay, I'll give it to Dennis with Paul as the second. Okay,
All in favor?
all in favor? Thank you.
Aye.
I'm trying to rush the meeting through.
It's all right with me.
I figure who's going to complain about minutes, but anyway, you're right. Good point. Okay, January 9th, 2018. Any questions or comments on the minutes?
I'll second.
Okay, Jamie. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, minutes are approved. Item 3, review Peabody Essex Museum letter. I'm going to let Paul explain what he's been doing on the letter, and then we can discuss it, if you don't mind.
No, I'll just give a little background. My hometown is Salem, so I'm tied in with like the Salem pages and what's going on down there. And Salem is in an uproar over the Peabody Museum moving a lot of Salem's documents and history to Route 1 here in Raleigh. They bought that big warehouse on 306. It used to be the Schilling Toy Company.
Yeah. All right.
And so, anyways, they're not very happy with it. And when I found out about where the building was, I asked if, what the amount of taxes that the town, that were being paid at the town for that. And it was just under $90,000. And when Peabody Museum bought it last July 1st, they immediately filed for a tax exemption, and they got it because they're a major institution. And so anyway, I met with Larry, Debbie Egan, Sean McFadden, and Joe Perry the week before last, and we had a discussion about this, and then we would like to meet with the director. It was recommended. So I wrote this letter, and Joe signed it, I guess, Monday night, Larry? Was it?
2 weeks ago.
A week ago,
A week
or
ago.
2 weeks ago.
And I guess Larry is going to decide whether to sign it. And then it would go to the director of the Peabody Essex Museum, and we'd like to have him come in, contact us, the Board of Selectmen, and then, I guess to welcome them. I mean, that they're a worldwide institution, and they have global implications, and to discuss different issues about them being, a a citizen, in a way, of the town.
Is that open to the public? Is that gonna be open to the public?
That's one of the things we're not sure of. I went there in December. I went to the building because I took pictures for the Salem group, because they had no idea where this was in accessibility or anything. So they had a big crew doing the interior of the building, and there was a guy that's at a set-up table in the lobby, and he said, but they were construction people, but he says that his understanding was that the front part was going to be a library area. But according to the Town Common newspaper, and I have that here from a few weeks ago, it says that they were only going to have it open 12 hours a week. So that's another reason why the folks in Salem are upset, because you have a lot of people coming into Salem, and the buildings, everything is close. They can take the train. It's just a couple blocks away if they want. There are hotels all over Salem now, and many, many restaurants. And, you know, if researchers come from out of state and they have to come up to Raleigh now, if they take the train, there's no taxi or bus service. They really have to have a car. And then if they have very limited hours that they can do research, it makes it much more costly for them. And so there are a number of issues, but that's not Rowley's problem. I can see if Rowley's historical documents were going to be shipped to Salem or some other city, I think people in town would be very upset with that. And they're not complaining about the non-Salem documents as much as Salem has a very rich maritime history, the whole witchcraft trial eras. A lot of the other key thing is most cities and towns have a historical association. Okay, Salem, ironically, does not, because the Peabody Museum is the oldest museum in the United States. It was founded in 1799 by merchants, and they donated things they collected from the Orient in the China trade. And then the wealthier merchant families started donating things, artifacts, and then we had the Essex Institute, which was where most families, Salem families, donated their documents to. Well, that was the Essex Institute merged with the Peabody Museum in 1992, and the researchers had accessibility to the Phillips Library. That's the big thing, the Phillips Library. Well, that closed several years ago for restoration, and now the museum is saying they just, they're concerned about the age of the documents and storing the documents with proper climate conditions and those older buildings. It says that they said they looked in Salem, they couldn't find any type of building that would be accommodating for them. So they started looking, and they found this building on Route 1 Raleigh. It's still in Essex County. I know the folks in Newburyport, I've seen letters and comments, they're very happy because a lot of the stuff is coming much closer to them. But the main issue is for Salem is its own documents. So I guess Salem's learned a lesson that they wish they had a historical society like Raleigh and other cities and towns in the county do.
Well, what's in it for us if there's not going to be any taxes? What is it for us? I mean, it's just going to be like a...
The town has
an
lost
action
about
film,
90,000,
yeah.
and, it becomes a tax, it's a big loss to the town.
So why would we okay something like that?
We don't have a choice.
We don't have
I
a
know.
choice.
We
They
don't
bought
have
the
a choice,
property.
So,
We don't
It was
own
on the
building.
market for I think they said 2 years. Schilling left
Probably.
several years ago.
Yeah,
okay.
probably
And the
about
museum
that.
found, and they're spending, by the way, if I recall, $15 million converting this huge warehouse building for storage and archives. And they're also going to do a lot of their restoration work up here because it's a very modern facility.
Oh, interesting.
So the issue for them is, for Salem, is if they're going to get some of this stuff back, but they are a very prestigious and global institution now, and they raised $650 million. That's 2/3 of $1 billion almost in their most recent capital campaign. And they're putting on a large addition right now on Essex Street in Salem to the, so they're the 10th largest, they're in the top 10 museums now in the United States for display space. In a
It's-
city of 40,000, it's
That's amazing,
amazing.
John.
But with all
You
that
think of
money-
New York City,
That's
Chicago.
amazing, right.
And then right in.
But with all that money
Salem.
behind them, they could build a brand-new building in Salem and make
Well,
everybody
that was
happy,
some
right?
issue, but, right, again, that's not our issue.
Yeah.
As far as, for us, it's the loss of tax revenue.
Yeah.
And, you know, but we, you know, on the other hand, we, you know, I guess we have to, should develop a relationship,
Mhm.
Oh, absolutely.
just like we would with any other major
Right.
institution.
Well, long-term, there might be some gains as far as if people know that the warehouse is there and they start to expand their hours, people are going to be looking for places to eat and stay, and that
Yep.
might bring in new business.
Yeah, more restaurants possibly, but perhaps even a hotel or two with time. It depends on what type of work they do there. Whatever it is, because the people that are working in Salem now are now going to have a long commute if they don't live,
Yeah.
you know, if they live in the Salem area. So, but the only way to get there is by car. We don't have like the bus. The train is 3 or 4 miles on the other side of town. You can't walk across town with hardly any sidewalks and things like that. You know, no taxis or buses. So really, it's researchers that come in will have to rent cars now. A lot of them would, that I heard, that came into Boston could take the train to Salem Station. It didn't even have to rent a car. There's hotels all around and restaurants, and that they, you know, great, just go a few blocks to the Peabody Museum. They won't be able to do that now.
Well, I mean, there's opportunities for maybe a cab company or
Yeah.
Lyft or Uber.
Yeah.
There's
Right.
plenty of things, and I think it's a good
Sure.
idea to welcome them in and
Yeah.
see how can we help them, type of a thing. And that's kind
Succeed.
of what the letter's about.
That's great.
So I'd like a,
I'll make a
Motion
motion that
to-
Larry signs it.
And I
okay.
will second that.
Any other discussion?
It's a fabulous museum.
Yes,
It is.
Yes, it
They have
is.
a Georgia O'Keeffe
Right.
display.
I love the Chinese house.
Oh, I do too.
I was just gonna say the
Yeah.
Chinese house is incredible.
Yeah.
All those in favor of my signing the letter signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you. Yeah, next item of business, review revolving accounts in the fiscal 19 budget. What I had sent to you were last year's full revolving accounts and this year, July through, I think it was December or so,
Yeah.
for us to review when we start getting the budgets. There's no sense of reviewing the things now when we can review it when we get, say, the zoning board or the AgCom budgets, and we can look at the accounts then, or at least the department head might be available at the time to explain any questions we have on the revolving accounts. So,
I
unless,
appreciate, you know,
That was-
getting that to us, because I think it's gonna be helpful this year when we go through the budget to take a look at
Yes, it is.
those accounts that we probably hadn't looked at closely last year.
right,
So I appreciate getting that information.
so, appreciate you bringing it up. Okay, any other discussion on the revolving accounts?
I was just
I-
surprised, okay.
Sure.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just surprised to see how much revolving account, the balance is on the, was it on the conservation? No, the septic is.
Yeah, $1 million.
1 we were sitting on that much money, I didn't realize at 1.1 million dollars.
I'm assuming that's probably grant
Wow.
money too.
That's the money that they loan people to
Yeah, I know.
fix their septic systems.
No, I
Yeah.
didn't realize the balance was so,
Right.
that we had that much of a balance.
Well, I
That's-
think it
wow.
was state gave us the money to begin with.
I'm not sure I understand.
She couldn't even.
Hey, she didn't know the answer either.
Geez, what good is it, okay?
That was clever. classic. I had a question on these, because in last year's warrant, the town voted for that new bylaw, I guess, to establish these, the way the state wanted it, and they established that, I think it was 13 revolving accounts. But when you look at the sheets that you gave us, there's other accounts there, like selectmen, there's one for the treasurer.
Right, some of those
Those are different, yeah.
are mandated. Debbie gave me,
So they're outside that Article 10 bylaw?
Yeah.
Right.
To establish those, okay.
and I'll pass this information to you this week as far as which ones are, one of them, like the Council on Aging,
Yeah.
van revolving, has to do with General Law C 44, Section 53E,
Okay,
1/2.
So that's what all that means up on top there.
Right,
So, and then
So-
the other thing I noticed is some of them have, that we've established not to exceed a certain number for expenditures, and most of them were, I think all of them were under the expenditures. However, some of the balances were considerably above the number. So is there a way of tapping that money if we needed this year to offset the budget? So say, for example, and I don't know offhand, I've got them here, but I don't have the exact number, but say, for example, they can expend 5,000, but they have 15 in that account. Is there any way that we can tap, 5 or 10,000 out of that?
I don't believe so.
Well, how can that number just keep on growing, and then it never gets expended, you know what I'm saying? Like, for
Right.
example,
Like that's, the fund.
the health has
that's
got $1 million in
$1
there.
million.
Maybe they're only gonna give out 500,000.
I've
a
always noticed that money has never really gone down, for the,
That's
so
what
why
I'm
we
saying.
carry,
year. Yeah,
right.
I mean, even if we tap this money, and I'm not even sure that that's the right way of doing it, or I'm correct in saying that, they can always build it back up, you know what I'm saying? Because it looks like in some of these that they're generating some pretty good revenue. And so what I'm saying is that, they're not spending it as fast as they're collecting it. So to me, that's available funds to the towns somewhere.
I believe the only thing you can do would be to up the amount that they can use.
Yeah, but they're not even using their
Yeah.
amount. That's what I'm saying. Is that if you give them 5,000, they're spending maybe 4,000, and they're generating 6,000 or 7,000. So they're getting more than what they're spending. Some of them didn't spend anything,
Right.
and they're generating revenue. So what I'm saying is, can we tap some of that money? And I'm not saying take it away from them. I mean, certainly if they have a long-term plan,
Right.
then that's what it's there for. But I mean, there's some accounts there when I look at it that certainly could be, some money could be taken from that.
but I'm just thinking that the one that I brought up, I think a lot of it must be restricted funds that you can't
yeah,
use
Right.
for other things,
Yeah,
A lot of it
these,
you can only use
these,
it
these are
state
set
and
up
money like that,
so that receipts from certain things will go into these accounts.
Mhm.
The only thing you could do to get it out, I would believe, would be do away with the revolving fund.
Either
Or
that
change the rules for it, or something.
reduce their budget, saying that they're tapping the revolving account for expenses, say, for example, then you maybe put 0 for expenses in that line item, in the town report. I mean, in the budget.
Right. But I think that's
I don't think
something
you can
that's
do
going to
that.
be almost unique to each account.
Yeah.
So what we'll have to do when the budget sheets start to come in is to review the budget sheets with the revolving account. And
How
then,
much they had over from last year.
yeah,
I mean,
come up
maybe
with
Debbie can help us.
questions,
Yeah.
right, beforehand, so that
Yeah.
if,
Now, look at like Parks and Recreation.
Yep.
Okay, they're not using any of that this time of year, come spring.
Yeah, but they don't use anywhere near 30,000. I mean, when you looked at their
But they don't-
ending balance.
But they
Yeah.
don't have anywhere near 30,000 in there either.
Yeah, but that's just the opposite of what I'm referring
Yeah,
to.
but I'm
There's
just
other
saying,
ones that are-
what I'm
that are-
saying is that you have to look at when these are used.
Yep, and maybe we ought to look at that expenditure number too. If they're only using 6,000 a year, and they get an expenditure up to 30, maybe it should be reduced to 20. And I'm saying just gradually bring it in line, but it's based on, the department's explanation as to what they need that money for.
And if circumstances change it going forward, that can always be pushed up
But,
again.
but the question I
Yes,
really need to
it's
have
like-
answered, and maybe Debbie can answer that, or
Mhm.
somebody, is can we have some of that money, if it's not earmarked specifically for septic systems or something?
I think you're going to find that if they're in this, they're specifically marked for certain things. Like this, I believe the septic system money came from the state.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right.
That I
Yeah.
know, I understand that. And that might be the case for the library and a few others here. But there's got to be some in here that are just, created to
Yeah, like
offset the
for
budget.
your example, like the recreational field maintenance has a 30,000 revolving fund, beginning balance of 2,000. They debited almost 7,000 and credited 13,000 for ending balance of a credit of 8,000.
Mhm.
But, that might be building up because they're going to be doing away with the ball field at 133 and 1 and putting something in
Yeah, so
by
that's what we need to
Bradstreet.
find out, I
Right.
guess, to basically understand this a little bit better. What are these numbers? How did they come up with these numbers, and what are they for? I'm not saying that anybody isn't entitled to any of this money. I'm
No,
just saying
no,
that there's money
it's
that's
just
sitting
a
there.
general
We're looking for scraps this year.
Right.
We're gonna be looking for nickels and
understanding
dimes.
of,
Yeah.
what their fund is used for,
Yeah.
what the balances are, and we'll say if there is an excess or a big deficit, what can be done.
Well, I don't like that, when you mentioned that, I'm looking at the harbor master, that's 30,000. Doesn't seem like they would, we had that project before that they worked on fixing the
Fixing the docks.
dock, but they
But that came out
fixed
of
that
the
now,
water-
right?
the
That was an
capital
article.
budget.
That was an
Yeah,
article.
That was an
That
article,
was an
so why,
article, yeah.
so what did we have 30,000 in there then?
We don't have
I
30,000.
mean, that's what it says, expenditures
No,
not to
No,
exceed.
it says you can't
Not to
spend more than
exceed.
30,000. He doesn't have anywhere near that type of
But I
money.
know, but why we have expenditures not to exceed 30 grand?
Because
then?
it can
it's
come up
not-
with the pump, I believe that would be something to do with the pump-out boat and things like that,
Right.
too.
But I think that whoever it is, whatever department, they need to explain clearly what they need that money for. Not like, well, in case something happens, whatever.
Well,
I
when,
think we
these
just-
were all explained and voted on when they were set up.
So maybe we just need an explanation again, just so
Yeah,
that we
yeah.
understand it. I
Right.
mean, I don't understand it
Yeah.
completely. Maybe I wasn't paying attention or whatever, but.
Yeah, well, a lot of them have been set up for a long time.
Yep. But that doesn't mean that they're cast in stone. I mean, I think this year, we're gonna be looking for nickels and dimes, and,
Right.
maybe we can, maybe we can't, so.
But you got your explanation.
Yeah, that's what they use for.
Yeah, yeah, like your harbor master, into which donations and proceeds from boats and equipment.
But, again, the 30,000 maybe.
30,000. That's it, if they sold a
The
boat
limit.
and they got stuff.
To spend, I
and-
know, they
and-
got
and they got
30,000 to
them-
spend.
then they
But
could
maybe
spend
don't
it on-
need to spend 30,000.
But they don't have it anyway.
Then
why
maybe
do
it
you
should
have
be
the
20
number?
instead of 30, you know what I'm saying? We're going around circles.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
well,
when they come, we
The
can.
limit that they can spend
I understand.
depends on what they have.
I got it, yep.
So that doesn't really mean anything.
So,
Yeah,
but I'll argue
it's-
it again,
it's like-
is why do you have 30 if you only
You know,
take in 6,000 a year?
You
Why
can't
does it need to
spend
be
more
30?
than
You can't-
$100 going to Market Basket, okay? Here's $10.
Mhm.
Well, you're not gonna get to the $100 limit because you only have $10.
And
So-
it's only a limit on what they can spend. It's not telling you
Hmm.
that they're going to have that amount of money. But if they sold
I'll leave it at that. Yep, that's fine.
Yeah,
So-
we can bring it up at
with each one, but.
with each one. Okay, anything else on the revolving accounts?
But it seems like the town might be paying too much in terms of the septic if there's that
Town
kind
isn't
of.
paying.
I mean, not the town, I mean the homeowners, that's what I meant. I think they're paying, well, like, if there's
Well,
that kind of fund
Well,
balance
it's a-
going
it's
on
a-
with the state, is,
No, I think it's a 2% loan,
yeah.
so I don't think, it's set up by the state and
Mhm.
for people with failing septic systems, that's not a bad rate. I mean, the normal loans are 3 to 4% at least, so.
Do you feel that that number is appropriate number, though, $1.1 million?
Well, again, I mean, it's a limit. You don't know if a lot of people's, or not a lot, but we'll say if 10 people's septic systems fail.
But that's what their balance is, though, that's not the extent, that's their fund balance.
But I think if you look at it, there's a number like 63,000, and it's repeating. I think that may be the grant that the town gets for that account, so it just keeps on going in there and building every year.
Yeah,
because the
the
state-
people borrow the money,
Yeah,
and
and then
then they pay it back.
Pay it back.
Yeah.
It goes into that fund.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go on to a less controversial subject, Triton Regional School District budget.
Until they make a decision, there isn't much we can.
Well, just as an aside, and to bring everyone up to speed, the Board of Selectmen last night discussed the Triton budget, and I think we all have
I watched it,
Yeah.
Should watch it.
but the sheet-
the sheets, okay, and they were recommending what Triton is calling scenario 3, the reduction to
53 people laid off.
51.
Italian
51
Yeah.
people.
nurses come back.
basically to match the Rowley increase of 200,000. That is one half the new growth and the Proposition 2.5 increase.
There was an article in today's newspaper, did you see that?
Yep.
By the superintendent.
No.
Yeah, basically,
got a doctor's.
explain the same thing that.
Dr. Olson.
The selectman said last night, except he said it's devastating, he's never seen it in the last, what, 17 years?
Yeah.
Something like that. Would,
But-
just, well, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that the Board of Selectmen are telling Triton that the scenario 3 is what Rowley can afford. Now, I don't think you got a copy of the letter. I'll send it to you. I got it last night. To the Board of Selectmen from the fiscal team. And they outline in there, I'm not going to read the whole letter.
Is that a response to the selectman?
It's a response to the documentation from the regional school district, and also about the school agreement with the teachers union. That basically it's the agreement calls for like a 2.75 cost of living increase and a step increase and things like that. The fiscal staff points out that in reality, those raises could be more in the 6 to 10% raise category rather than 2.5, 2 3/4, or 3 3/4. But I'll send you a copy of
Okay, that would be
this.
good.
But the bottom line is, just read the last paragraph. In conclusion, year after year, Triton has increases that far outpace the town's new tax revenue from property taxes. The disparity in pay and benefits between town and Triton employees is also alarming. The fiscal staff strongly supports your commitment of $200,000 to Triton, and your commitment is the Board of Selectmen's commitment of $200,000 to Triton for the increase in Rowley's portion of their fiscal year 2019 budget. And what I would recommend is that we're not approving the school budget. We're just recommending that we're standing behind the Board of Selectmen's and the fiscal staff's recommendations that the Triton budget, our portion of it only go up by 200,000.
So that letter's saying they're backing.
They're backing the
Our
Board of,
position?
the Board of
That's from
Selectmen's position.
School department?
No, this is from the fiscal
Oh,
staff.
from Rowley.
From
Okay, got
Rowley.
it. Yep.
Okay. Deborah Egan, Susan
Yep.
Bailey, Karen Summit, Sean McFadden, Amy Lyden. Now, there's a preliminary budget meeting Wednesday.
But they changed.
Changed
No,
it.
we changed it, it's
Thursday.
Thursday because of the storm tomorrow.
Oh,
We got an
okay,
We got
Late
an,
email.
Debbie sent a message.
okay. Well, that's gonna conflict with the Thursday
The Pine Grove School.
Pine Grove School meeting, but
I'm not going to that anyway.
anyway, whenever the meeting is, I think it behooves Rowley and us
Stand on
to
that.
have, well, to have a united front as far as supporting the $200,000 increase. Again, we're not approving a budget, we're just saying that
Supporting.
we're recommending
Scenario
only a
three.
$200,000
Yeah,
increase.
but they already know that anyway, I think, right? I mean,
Well,
you
they've
know,
got the letter from the selectmen. If
Yeah.
they also have that the finance committee voted to go along with the selectmen, it might add a little weight. I don't know if it will, but
Yeah, I mean, if.
it
if
sounds like we're all
the-
in agreement.
Right. If Triton sees that the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee, the fiscal team are all behind this
Yeah.
scenario 3,
It's more than the
It's-
committee.
it's more of a united front. It's not like a disparity or
So we're gonna be
division.
sending our own letter? I mean,
No,
we're
no.
not part of the fiscal team, or?
Whoever goes to the meeting, if can
No.
mention it.
Yes. I'll be going to the meeting,
Okay.
and they have a open period where anyone in the audience can speak for 3 minutes. And I have in the past, I've outlined my concerns, and I'll do it again, because I'm sure that you're going to have parents and teachers there that maybe will have a different view.
Yeah, they've got to realize this. One thing I've been reading in the papers lately, that thank goodness we don't have a rubbish removal contract. Have you been seeing what the towns are, the increases they're getting in that?
No.
Because you can't, the recyclables can't go to China.
Yeah, they're being fussy.
Right.
And I know there's a big article on Ipswich tonight on the huge increase that their rubbish contract is gonna be. So that's, everything's hitting. I'll make a motion that the finance committee support number 3.
I will second that.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Let me just,
So, we're making a motion to just go along with our fiscal team is basically
Right,
saying?
right.
right,
We're not-
Not
right,
necessarily
to,
scenario 3. I don't know if that letter addresses
Yeah,
scenario
it
3.
did.
That's what
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
about,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
supporting
Right.
scenario 3,
I mean, because we really don't know what it's gonna end up. I mean,
Correct.
We have no
And I know we
idea.
wanna go this route,
yeah.
but we really don't know the impact yet, because they don't even know what the impact is on the school.
no, I mean, they're looking for inputs. So what we're doing is saying, this is what Raleigh can afford.
Can I ask,
Sure.
does anybody know what the other towns
I was just
are
gonna
doing?
ask that.
You heard, namely Salisbury. I mean, are they in the
No.
same position as we are, or?
Salisbury is similar. I went to their Warren Advisory Committee meeting, and they operate differently. Their Board of Selectmen do not have a draft budget as yet. They do know that the numbers that have been talked around as far as a increase of 3.26 million or something like that, that Salisbury just can't afford it. Their new growth and their Prop 2.5 increase and things like that just cannot support
But
those
did they say anything about
numbers.
scenario two, the 1.3? I mean, do you think that they're more palatable to that number as opposed to our number? I mean, it would be great if
Mhm.
at least 2 or 3 towns all sent the same message and we knew what everybody was doing, I guess. But I mean, in your sense from Salisbury, you think that they're gonna be cutting a little bit as well?
Yes. When I was when they were reviewing some of the budget items as far as what their new growth and sources of income and what things were coming online for them, it's like, they have now the new police station, they have the library, which are coming online.
They just added 5 full-time firefighters.
Right.
Oh, did they?
And they're down 2 fire trucks. They've had to borrow from Amesbury fire trucks because one of their fire trucks, which is only a year old, is out of commission.
Well, that's not good news.
So, they have a lot of straits, bad, not information, but disparaging budget items that they're looking at.
And I know their base is different than ours. They have more commercial and things of that nature, which we don't have, but, I didn't know if they were struggling like we were on this. And
They are struggling. When I presented the information that I had as far as the increase in the Triton budgets, what Rowley could afford, and things like that, they saw their new revenue increase shrink, and if either scenario 1 or 2 go into effect, they don't have the money either. They were very disheartened to have their bubble burst. Now, Newbury, I don't know, but
would it be out of line, and maybe it is, I'm not sure, to send a copy of our letter to the other 2 towns so they know where we are heading? I mean, not that they really care about Raleigh, but at least they know what we're looking at, because we'd like to know what they're doing as well. Would that be out of line? I don't know, maybe that's something Debbie could answer.
That would be up to the committee that made that
right.
letter, I would believe.
But I've been in contact with Karen Snow, who is the finance director in Salisbury, and letting her, as well as Chuck, the Board of Selectmen chairman, know how Rowley has been progressing and what we've been doing. So I've been keeping them aware of what's,
And they get this document too, right?
yes.
Which basically, I think, says that they were trying to meet Rowley's number, right? So they, probably
Right.
by just looking at this, know
Yeah.
where we're headed, right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to take a vote.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye to support the $2,000
Scenario 3.
Scenario 3.
Sin-
200,000.
Scenario 3, yeah.
100,000.
Aye.
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 Peter is out in the hall,
So it'll be absent.
so he'll be absent, yeah.
Right. Okay, so it's motion to support that passes.
So you're gonna speak on our behalf, President? Is that what you're gonna do a letter?
I'll check with Debbie to see if I can at least give a copy of the letter.
Yeah, who was the letter sent to?
It was sent to the Board of Selectmen
Oh, okay,
with a copy.
to us?
No, copy to no one. So I'll check with Debbie tomorrow and see. I could entertain a motion to, if there's time, to have a letter to the selectmen and the fiscal staff supporting the scenario 3.
Yeah, it wouldn't have to be a long letter, I don't think,
No.
it's just, you know, they've outlined everything there, we're just saying we support that, so, yeah, I mean, it needs to
Okay.
be on the record somewhere.
All right, so is that a motion, Dennis?
Yeah, I'll make that
All
motion.
right. You have a motion,
A second.
I'll second. Any other discussion?
I was just going to ask Larry, do the other two towns have major projects underway that's affecting their taxes too? I see like in the papers, like it's like Rowley, we've got the police and fire station project underway. We're going to have the major renovation of Pine Grove. The other two towns
They have,
have
Salisbury
major-
has the new library that they just finished building.
That's been a couple of years though.
And,
Yeah.
well, yeah, but you pay for it for like
Yeah,
30
well,
years.
and we have the
yeah.
water
Right.
treatment
Yeah,
plant too.
In the field.
and they have the new police station.
station.
Okay. And what about Newbury? They don't have much commercial base at
They're
all,
trying to
Newbury.
find a place to have a town hall.
Okay.
Their town hall was condemned.
If anything, you would think Newbury would be struggling the most because they have a very little commercial base, and they're trying to develop more on Route 1, but it's mainly homes. And we have more of a commercial base than they do, and Salisbury has a fairly good commercial base on 110, is it? 10 and Route
Right.
1 too.
One.
Yeah.
But they're also looking at major redevelopments along their oceanfront area, right in front of the boardwalk.
Okay.
Right.
That's still probably several years down the line, but that's what they're looking at as far as, maybe one of their salvations in 2 years or something like that, but,
To benefit their summer
yeah.
tourism.
I mean, in the meantime, you drown and then your body washes up and
Yeah,
what good is there at that point?
yeah.
The scary part of this whole thing, though, it just doesn't end this year.
No.
It doesn't.
Next year.
It doesn't.
The year after, it's gonna be
It doesn't.
similar scenario unless something changes, and, I don't know.
No, if you look at those figures and like the cost of living increase was $936,000, medical was a couple of hundred, special ed was $874,
854, yeah.
and you're behind the 8 ball for fiscal '20.
Yeah, I think they blew it as far as the cost of living, because anybody, if 80% of your cost is based on your salaries, and you're automatically gonna give people a 2% cost of living, so you're right up against the wall right there to begin with, without anything else going on, and so I think that, the teachers, they got, based on everything, they got more than, if there should be, I don't think they would do it though, but there was talk about maybe going back to the, to the union and seeing if they're willing to take less, so that some of the people would be spared and wouldn't be, laid off, because it's not gonna do anybody's good if a lot of teachers get laid off. And I think right now, we probably would have to go for an override, because how can you lay off 53 teachers and not have that have a major effect on, the kids' education, so.
They're not saying 53
Teachers.
They're saying
teachers.
53.
Well, 52
Staff.
personnel, yeah,
Staff.
but how many teachers, it's probably gonna be at least, of that number, probably at least 25%, 30% is gonna be teachers too, besides, the other staff members.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
that's-
time will
that's-
tell.
Well, you have I think I read somewhere that the state used to pay roughly 1/3 contribute to the regional schools, and it's down to 22%. Did I read that
Well, I
right?
think it
Oh,
somewhere?
they're
was,
way down.
it was up
It's
around,
way
I
down.
think it
So
was up around
If-
40% at
if
one
we
time.
didn't
and
have
it's gone
that,
down.
yeah, if we didn't have that deficit,
Yeah.
I think we'd be fine.
Yeah, of
But
course,
the-
yeah.
The state keeps cutting back, and the
But-
towns have to bear the brunt of it.
You know what my response to
Or
that
cut.
is, because I mentioned this at the meeting, and of course, nobody, they just boo like I don't know what I'm talking about, but personally speaking, you know, with the state, one of the reasons why the money has gone down too like this is because the state's income tax used to be, you know, close to 6%, but over the years, it's dropped like this, and the money has dropped like that too to go with it, so, I mean, if people want to have, you know, all the services, amenities that they have to pay for it too. And I think it's harder to have, if, on the backs of people who have to pay, you know, in the cities and towns property tax, where money is very tight and you're limited to Prop 2.5, where, you know, if the state taxes right now around 5%, and they could take in like $40 billion, you do the numbers, one into, you know, for each 1%, that's $8 billion that the state takes in. So even if your state income tax increased by like 0.3 or 0.4, that would bring in $500 or $600 million, and that would go a long way to helping to pay for schools and cities and towns and bridges that are falling apart and everything. That's what I think the only solution would be. That's.
They use the lottery supposed to save it,
Yeah.
the marijuana.
But because they use that money, they use that money for other
None of
things,
that.
that's what the problem is, they use it in a general fund.
Again.
But they should have restrictions and qualifications and say, okay, this money's gonna be earmarked for this and it can't be used for anything else.
Well, that's
That's
what they
what they
said with
should
the
do.
lottery funds, too.
But
Exactly what they said.
but just
Yeah.
because they said it doesn't mean that's how it has to
And
be.
increase
I
the
mean,
not what they
cigarette
do.
tax.
people should complain, they should complain to the politicians and to the leadership that,
Well, they,
you know, that
they
this
will
is
when all these
not.
towns go into receivership.
Mm.
So, we're
Okay.
gonna vote in that, motion.
I thought we
No.
did.
We did,
Oh, did we vote?
Yeah, we did.
right.
Well, we voted on sending the,
letter.
recommending that, but then we're gonna send a letter.
But we voted that,
Okay.
too.
Well, I was saying-
Right. You even made the motion.
Yeah, I know that, I didn't write down the vote.
Oh,
So,
Okay, review number 6, annual town meeting, special town meeting schedules.
yeah, I'm looking at it, and do we really need to meet next week? We don't have any budget yet.
As far as I can see, I don't think we do.
I haven't seen them bring any to the selectmen's meeting for them to
No.
go over, and they get them first, and then we get them usually.
Do you want to have our next meeting on the 20th?
That,
Yeah, pending if they, budget's coming in.
yeah,
Right.
And just looking far in advance, we'd be meeting on Tuesday nights pretty much anyway, right?
right,
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, because I'm just trying to work out my
Yeah.
schedule too.
yeah.
So,
So I usually block out Tuesdays.
I'm sorry, Larry, I was out because I had a doctor's thing I had to get, but what was it that you guys talked about now as far as the, are they gonna go for the override, or are we gonna talk about just?
Well, we
You know,
voted
voted-
to have support the scenario 3, which
What
is
el-
the,
So no override, then we're gonna just go with the 3, which is gonna chop off about $2 million off there.
Yeah, but
$3
that
million
doesn't,
but-
that doesn't mean they're gonna do that. That
Right.
means that we're
Supporting-
asking.
We're supporting
we're
it.
supporting what the selectmen and the fiscal staff are recommending to Triton School. And we did a vote on it, and hopefully I can send a letter supporting the Board of Selectmen and the fiscal staff. We're not voting on the budget, okay, because they haven't presented a budget.
We're gonna do that on
Triton.
the 14th, right? I read in the paper that
March
they're gonna do.
14th is
I
when
think-
we
Is-
have to
is
give us the
final-
budget.
That's the final.
They're gonna be
February.
discussion, there's a meeting coming up Thursday, now we're supposed to be for tomorrow, they're gonna be talking more about the.
Thursday, yeah,
Right. Budget
they're
and
not
stuff like that,
picking
you
up,
know.
they're just listening to everybody.
Did I read
Right.
somewhere that the
Public hearing.
14th of February, that the Triton was gonna come in with a preliminary budget?
The final
Yes.
budget isn't until the
I know,
14th of
but I mean,
March,
at least we'll
though.
know where they're headed by
Yeah.
the 14th, that they're gonna support whatever. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? They're gonna hit this public hearing, and then they were gonna vote to have a preliminary budget. I thought, I read that somewhere. So when we meet on the 20th, we should have a better idea as to where they're going.
Hopefully,
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
I don't expect it.
If February 14th was supposed to be the tentative budget.
Yeah, I read that.
February 28th, budget public hearing.
Yeah, so
March,
they're gonna just reiterate what they voted on the 14th, and then present it to the towns.
yeah,
I think for what they're.
budget deliberation is March 7th, and March
Yeah.
14th
Is the
final-
deadline.
Yeah.
Final budget.
But I remember 14th of
Which
February.
really is very hard for us
To approve?
to prove and other budgets and everything when we don't get theirs until the 14th of March.
Well, we'll know by the 14th of February where they're headed. Where it ends up is gonna be something different, but, that's up to
I've seen
them.
it change.
Oh, I know,
Yeah.
it changes every year.
Yeah,
They have
but
to- they
they
do
do
the
the
cutting.
preliminary, then they
They'll
cut,
cut.
then they put back, then they cut again,
Yeah.
and
But we'll have a relative idea whether they're supporting a 1.3 million, a 3 million, or a 500,000 budget, increase.
Right. Okay, so the next meeting will be the 20th, and we'll,
unless for some miracle we have budgets, you can call
Yeah.
us.
well, even then, we'll probably be getting in some of the easier budgets that will
Yeah.
not take too much time. And then we'll follow the schedule that we
Yeah.
have,
Yep.
just in case.
Yes.
Okay, give us some good news on the water department.
I've met with Commissioner Cullen, and very happily Dennis was involved with that meeting as well. They clearly don't have their budget ready to go. Dennis was there when Bernie, Commissioner Cullen, and Rob Swiniarski from the Water Department has been very involved with what's actually been needed versus what the budget is. Some ups, some downs, a lot of reallocating, so the what they have written so far makes a lot more sense, is more readable. Dennis brought up some really good recommendations that they will probably use not this year, but going forward into next year's budget, 2020's budget, in terms of breaking down the water treatment plant versus distribution, the actual costs versus actual costs, actual budget versus actual costs. There is some, I've been very pleased with the progress that, and the amount of time that Commissioner Cullen has put in. You jump in.
Yeah, I want to thank Jamie for letting me sit on the meeting too, because, I've been sort of, hard on the water department, just trying to get the right numbers and trying to get them to actually look at their budget, which I think last year we know how
It's tough.
confusing it was. And I really do appreciate, the water commissioners taking a good look in, getting right into the budget and looking at items and trying to straighten out, some of the gray areas that we had last year, so that I think that, some of the items that we discussed the other day, I think are a positive. I think they're gonna be reducing some of the items that, need to be reduced, and, they're gonna have a better explanation for the amount of money that they have. I mean, I reiterated some of the concerns I had last year with, the excess in wages and a few other line items, and I think they're gonna address that. They've changed the formula, the format, I should say, a little bit better, so you can read it. I know Commissioner Cullen was very, spent a lot of time, and I know he's taken it apart piece by piece, which is really what you need to do, because then you can really see where the problems were. And I think that, by having these meetings ahead of time, that they're gonna come in, with a good budget, and, they'll have some recommendations as well. And then,
Okay.
by dividing next fiscal year, make it a little bit easier, because my suggestion was to divide the distribution with the treatment plant so people knew what was going where in these two major portions of a budget, because in a big budget like that, like when I had a budget, I had rubbish collection, I had all kinds of things. People want to know, how much are we spending for rubbish, how much are we spending for that? So in the water department, you want to know how much you're spending for distribution and how much is a treatment plant really costing us. When you lumped it all together, like last year was like a $1 million slush fund, you really had no idea, what was going where. And not that, anything was happening, but you just want to know, be accountable for how much energy it's costing to run the place, the different aspects that it takes to make that plant run. And then and it's helpful for them as well. So as years go on, they know that there's a trend
Sure.
that they can follow, and it will make it a lot easier for everybody. So I thank Jamie for
Yeah.
allowing me to sit in with
Well,
her on that.
the format is concise, makes a lot more sense, and they've gone as far as breaking down wages for scheduled overtime versus, it's just efficient. I think the biggest take-back, well, not the biggest take-back, the biggest take-back is the amount of effort that's been put into making them understand it just as much as us understanding it, but also to keep in mind that this is a whole new format, that we're starting from today going forward, not looking at, past budgets that maybe weren't as clear as we would have liked, that we're starting right now and with a fresh set of eyes.
And with the amount of money that they have accumulated in their stabilization fund, which is significant, I know that they're thinking about a long-range capital plan that is doable, not just, thrown together. And it's gonna take some time to get that, in place and funded and whatever. So they're looking at their stabilization fund to say, this is what we wanna do with our money.
Right.
And if they find that there's a savings that can be made, they may even change the rates a little bit, but that's up to the commissioners. And,
Right.
I think by, looking at, like, for example, the dehumidification that was in their budget, 400,000, 480,000, has now gone away. And then there was another $200,000 item somewhere. So there's a bunch of,
Yeah, no.
it was the, I'm trying to think what it was. There was a couple of big items there that they're not doing
Remember the
anymore.
200,000
So,
one.
that's gonna be a savings to them.
Right.
And, so they're looking at that seriously. So I feel comfortable and a lot better that they understand their budget.
Well, they've had to take up the slack without a superintendent and get really much more involved than they have other years.
And the benefit, if you want to call it the benefit, but the positive of that is the people who are actually physically doing the job have a real strong barometer of
Yeah.
what the needs are and what the genuine needs are and what they would like to have, versus just a management person telling them.
Yeah.
So that has been a benefit, and they have been working closely with Chairman Cullen as well.
Yeah.
An education for them.
With Commissioner
too.
Cullen, excuse me.
Yeah.
It is, it
Yeah.
is.
So therefore, when you have a superintendent, they can, and the superintendent tells them what they need or whatever, they have a
Yeah.
better understanding of,
Sure,
you know.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Where do they stand with the superintendent now? Are they
They
interviewing
have-
anybody
They
yet?
have posted for the superintendent's position. I don't know where it
No,
stands in the who's applied, when the deadline is, interview process. I don't know any of that.
Okay.
There have been interviews that I know of.
They've been interviewing for laborers, I know that.
It's the commissioners that interview, right?
Somebody's applied for a superintendent?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, I don't know, how far along in the interview process or things like that, but I do know that there have been at least one person that has been interviewed for it.
And it's the commissioners that interview? for
Well, no,
superintendent?
this is the town staff
Personnel
first
board.
Okay.
Personnel board.
screens the people. So they've gone through some of the screening. I don't know what the results are, but I do know that it is being actively pursued, and there are bodies out there wanting to be hired. And I'm not one of them, so.
How long now has it been since we've lost the superintendent? How many months is it? Was it last summer? Oh, the fall? It's been a while.
It was last
Yeah,
summer.
summer.
July, I think
It was
it was,
the
About
whatever
6
it
months
is.
anyway.
Oh, she was on leave for a long time before she was
Yeah,
gone, too.
right.
Yeah.
As long as you two are satisfied with how the budget's going, because, this is the third budget change in like 4 years. And so, it's a, shaking up of everything again.
It is.
And it's very difficult to compare apples to oranges.
It is.
But as long as you two are satisfied with how things are going, then I
Yeah.
think,
I'm pleased with the clarity
we'll
of-
be in
of-
good hands once the
of the
budget comes here.
understanding, yeah. I'm pleased.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay.
Make a
Now,
motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you very much. And the video can